Yeah, it can get a lot harder to try to do everything at once. So,
That's right.
Of course, that's fine.
May I know your country of birth, please?
Country of birth is Australia.
Okay, and do you speak any other language, like beside English?
I speak Spanish,
Spanish.
but English is my primary language.
Okay. And may I know the size of pharmacy that you work in, like number of staff?
Pardon? Sorry.
The size of pharmacy, like how many staff do you have in the pharmacy?
So I work in a pharmacy where I'm the only staff member.
Okay.
That's my main work role over winter. I work in a pharmacy on a ski mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And we have one shop girl that works 5 hours on a Saturday.
Okay.
And I alternate the days between myself and my boss.
Okay.
And then otherwise I work as a locum.
Oh, okay. And how about like patients? How many patients roughly do you see per week?
It fully depends on where I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
In Perisher, it can be upwards of 200 people a day,
Mm-hmm.
but some days it can be as low as 30 people a day.
Okay. And may I know like the percentage of cold patients of those 200, like cold, culturally and linguistically diverse people?
It would be hard to put a figure on it exactly.
No, not exactly, just roughly, like 50% more or less.
The thing with this pharmacy is it's quite there's a lot of tourists that come through.
Mm-hmm.
It would be less than, probably less than 50%, but we get a lot of international tours. Oscar! We get a lot of international tours, so yeah, I would say maybe 20%.
Okay.
As a rough ballpark figure, but some days more, some days less.
Okay. And may I know the experience as a number of years as a pharmacist?
I got registered in the end of 2011, so 7 years.
7 years. Okay. Okay. And what are the main reasons that cold patients with asthma visit your pharmacy or consult with you? Why do you think they come and see you, like cold with patients with asthma?
For the most part, it would be for replenishment of their medication.
Mm-hmm.
Generally to get either a replacement prescription for their preventer or for a reliever, whether that be through prescription or over the counter.
Uh-huh. Do you come and ask you about like the technique of using the inhalers?
The technique?
Mm-hmm.
What was the question again, sorry? The line's just a little bit funny.
No, that's okay. The technique of using inhalers, like do they come and ask you to show them or to demonstrate how they can use it?
Quite often they don't. It's not something that's asked.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's something that is more like, as a pharmacist, you have to initiate that kind of interaction and question someone, hey, do you want to show me just how you're using it?
Mm-hmm.
I feel with the new evidence coming out around spaces, or like the evidence has been made more prevalently available, that the effectiveness of spaces, like it makes it a bit easier to question people, do you use the spacer, and then also to sort of just check how well they're using it.
Mm-hmm.
As a working predominantly as a locum, like when I do, one question that I generally ask, sometimes because people can get a little bit thrown off if you ask them to show them how they use it, is generally asking, are they finding that the preventer or the reliever is actually, or their medication is working for them when they need it or not? I find that sort of the easiest way to kind of at least engage, and then if they say, you know what, it's not, or I need it more often than this, it can sort of trigger a further, further.
So do they check if they got the treatment effect? Do you mean maybe they are not adherent to medications, for example, or there are any other reasons?
Yeah, there's one, there was one when I saw this example that stood out to me a lot when I first saw the post about the study. I was working in Broome for 3 months, and we had, I was working in a Section 100 Indigenous pharmacy, so we were dispensing a lot of medications for the Indigenous, remote Indigenous communities in the area. And there was one lady I recall particularly who was coming in really, really frequently for salbutamol inhalers, and I never quite got a grasp of whether English was a first language or not, but it definitely seemed like a really hard barrier to break down and question how using the medication was it actually being effective. And anytime there was a suggestion for, hey, maybe it's worth getting it checked out or chatting to the doctor, it was really sort of shooed away. But it just sort of depends. I find sorry, what was the question again? I was going to go off on a tangent and I don't know if what I was about to say is related.
That's okay. I'm going to ask you about the barriers or challenges that you might experience counseling cold patients with asthma. You just mentioned maybe the language. Can you tell me more about this?
So I've just come off spending 2 months in Chile, and I'm conversational I can hold a decent conversation in Spanish, but Chile is notorious for being quite hard to understand, the locals, because they speak, is English your first language, or is...
Me, no.
So have you found, did you immigrate to Australia, or have you...
No, I'm actually doing a PhD here, and of course there are at the beginning difficulties of the language, since it's not my first language. So I can't really understand that. Yeah, and I imagine you found, based on the experience of a lot of people that I've spoken to, Australians much harder to understand than other English speakers compared to someone from the UK or the United States. That's essentially the same for Chile. And I found there was quite a few times when I would be talking to someone where I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to get them to explain themselves too often, where I would just sort of nod along and say yes. And being on the receiving end, I guess, of those kind of exchanges really gives you an empathy of what, when I first started learning Spanish, it became quite pronounced that, when you are speaking with people that speak English as a second language, you really have to enunciate what you're saying. So you really have to pronounce your words, and you really have to speak a lot slower compared to how I would speak to you if you were one of my friends that I'd grown up with and we had our own. So do you follow these strategies in pharmacy? Let's say you have cold patients in the pharmacy and their English is not that good. So do you follow this strategy, trying to speak slowly, or what do you really do in this
definitely.
situation?
That was something, learning Spanish as a second language definitely taught me the importance of, because it's one thing that I could say to someone, if you notice someone doesn't speak English as a first language, slow down. But it's not really until you are on the receiving end of that communication barrier that you understand how important it is and how much easier it is to understand someone. And essentially checking for understanding, and whether or not you get them to repeat back what you've said to them, or what their instructions are. Essentially that can be done in any number of ways, and communication in the pharmacy is
but do you or do you use any translator services or anything else that can help you with that?
I refer to Google Translate. I've got an app on my phone, so I can write If it's a language that I'm not familiar with,